Alright, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, my professional YouTube channel that has 21 subscribers. What was that? 21. So thank you. Shout out everybody who hit the subscribe button. Shout out to my grandma and my poppy and my cousin and my mom and dad. You guys are awesome. You're the true fans, and I really just, it kind of warms my heart knowing that you guys just love me that much. And if you notice, I have upgraded to a microphone. However, if I am unable to sync the audio of this microphone in the phone, this will be useless, and so I'll just be holding a microphone for no reason for the entire video. But it's also aesthetic, so can you really say it's useless? I don't think so. I mean, when someone has a microphone, you just kind of automatically trust them a little bit more, right? So you guys trust me, and you trust what I'm about to tell you about Bridge to Haven. Yeah, I'm on a Francine Rivers kick. After my last video, the next book I decided to read was a book by Francine Rivers, and it was named Bridge to Haven. I pulled out my trusty Kindle for this one, the Starry Night Vibes, because I don't have a real copy of the book. I know. Kind of sad, kind of desperate, kind of pathetic. A little bit pathetic, but that's fine. It's fine. Here's the deal. It takes me a lot to think. So I read this book. I actually read this book when I was a wee little 13-year-old or something like that, 13, 14. When I say it scarred my innocence, I'm not being dramatic, it was scarring. And it's a good thing I didn't read Redeeming Love at that point, because I would have been doubly scarred. However, I want to discuss this book because last video I raved about a book written by Francine Rivers, and this video I'm going to unrave a book written by Francine Rivers. So, Bridge to Haven is a story about a girl found under a bridge as a baby. Yep. Someone just tossed their baby under a bridge in this town called Haven. It's like a bridge to Haven. What? What's going on? That's so ironic, except it's not. It was purposeful. So the baby is adopted by the pastor, reverend of the town, and he is like, his wife has cancer, so he's like, we shouldn't adopt this baby. The other couple wanted the baby, but they're like, oh, but like, I found it under the bridge, like finders keepers, you know what I mean? Like, I found the baby, I get the baby. Baby in the bridge, my baby in the bridge. Maybe a little bit dramatic, but that was the vibes where he was like, it's okay, like, I feel bad because you have cancer, obviously, but she's like, don't feel bad, we can take care of a baby, I'll be fine. Spoiler alert, she's not fine, she dies. And of course, the bridge baby named Abra, not sure how to pronounce it, I'm gonna go with Abra, I feel like that's a little bit more feminine. Abra. Not feminine, it just sounds better, let me just stop talking, except that's the whole point of this video, is that I talk. So, her name is Abra, okay? And she is obviously like, wow, I killed my mom. Because, of course, she hears the little whispers, oh, if she hadn't had to take care of that baby, then she wouldn't have died. And I'm like, what? Like, I know that isn't actually what killed her. Like, she had cancer. It was the cancer that killed her. But even siding with Abra, it sounds like everyone's kind of blaming her for the mom's death instead of blaming cancer, which is really weird, really traumatizing for a child. It's no wonder we're going to learn that she has a lot of family issues. So anyways, a character I forgot to mention is her brother, but it's like adopted brother. So she's adopted into the family. He's their actual son. So they're brother and sister for approximately a couple years. But then that family that wanted Abra in the beginning takes her because the reverend is like, listen, I am stricken with grief. I need to get rid of this child in a kind way. Give it to the family who really wants her, which again, more traumatizing. Now she has daddy issues because he's abandoned her, throwing her away to this other family. So again, I'm on Abra's side. I think this would be really, really hard for her to go through. And so keep it in the back of your mind that her and the guy were siblings for 2 years. I'm gonna make it weirder than it is, but it still weirds me out, okay? We'll get there. We will get there. So, lots happens. This book is way too long. Way too long for no reason. There are a lot of scenes that could just be cut out. I forgot to mention her little kind of brother for 2 years. His name is Josh, so remember that. Okay, we'll get back to him. And so Josh, you know, Abra, they are close. They're still friends as she's living with the other family. So they grow up together, obviously, but they're not brother and sister anymore. They never really were, but I'm still gonna make it weird. Abra grows up in a family where she feels like someone they don't want, even though they did originally want her, but she just doesn't get in her head. She's dealing with a lot of abandonment. I killed my mom, and then my dad abandoned me, and then, well, first, initially, my mom dropped me under a bridge, so she's got a lot of issues, obviously. She's got a lot to go through, to heal through. But she's got this fun little mentor who is this old crazy lady, lots of fun. She gets her to play the piano for church. She teaches her piano lessons, so that's a fun little cute part of the story. I really liked their character interactions. I think their dialogue was something that I would have liked to see more of, and I think it could have taken up more of the book than some other unnecessary stories, but that's another thing. Another character that's important is someone who was working at the diner. I believe her name is Susan. We're going to call her Susan, even if I'm remembering incorrectly. Her name is Susan. She's starting to work at the diner, so tuck her away. Tuck her, Josh, away, okay? We'll come back to them. So we're focusing on Abra. There's too much of her childhood story. Just like her fighting with her sister that she has now, because the family she got adopted to had a sister, so they have a bunch of fights. They have a bunch of like, they're battling out for these boys or whatever, and so it's just like a lot of pages of world building in a very kind of boring world. So it just got monotonous. It's like, okay, let's get to the actual story. It's important to understand that she isn't like having the best time in life. She's obviously got a lot to go through, and she's not really working through it, because that's where we get to the story basically starting. But again, it's like probably 150 words or pages of just this building. It's tension building. So actually we get to a boy who her and her sister are fighting over, and he's an actual rat, a scoundrel, basically. He comes from Hollywood, I guess. He comes to this little town named Haven, and he's there to raise heck. And so he first flirts with her sister, and her sister eventually is like, okay, he's kind of weird. So she backs off from the dude. But Abra takes this as like, oh, you can't handle him? I can handle him. And then she gets in his car, and he's just this like suave, charismatic, potato guy who just drives like 120 miles per hour for no reason. And then he starts kissing her, and he's basically forcing himself onto her without her feeling comfortable. But she's still like, she's got a lot of, oh, I don't belong. And he's telling her, you belong with me. Like, he's telling her everything he knows she wants to hear. That's who he is. And so eventually she's like, yep, I'm dipping with him. So she sneaks out in the middle of the night. Happens very fast. We get from her childhood, whatever, and then she jumps to going with this guy. He takes her to this really bougie hotel, basically rapes her because she don't know what's going on. So that's a whole horrifying ordeal for her. And now we get to the point, this is throughout the whole book, but let me bring this up because I'm going to keep bringing it up. The most annoying part of this book is we are learning about Abra and what she's gone through, and we don't really know her. For some reason, you just feel very disconnected from her. You don't feel her emotions. You don't feel her feelings. You are told what she's going through, but there's just not enough like connection or characterization for the main character of the book. We spend a lot of time with the other secondary characters. I feel like I knew them better than Abra. I just couldn't get behind all of her motivations and the things that she does without really getting inside her head, and I wasn't really able to get inside her head. So as these horrible things are happening, normally in a book I would be like almost on the verge of tears, just so upset for her. But when these were happening, because it was like just so undescriptive, did not give us a glimpse into what she was feeling, didn't show us how she reacted, it just felt very like numb. And maybe that's what they were going for. Maybe Miss Francine Rivers wanted us to feel like her numbness. And I would be okay with that explanation, but I'm not sure that it's it. I think it may have just been poor characterization of the protagonist. And that was just unfortunate because, like I said, it's a very long book. And so you just get caught up in not really knowing what this character is going to do. You don't really want much for her. Like, obviously, I want her to get out of the situation she's in, but it's like, she's just hard to root for because I don't see her inner struggle. I don't see her inner turmoil. as much as I should for the crappy decisions she's making. Because she does decide to go with this guy. She does decide. There are many times where she could do something to get out of it. And so that's okay. Obviously, like, we all go through stuff like that. And obviously she's dealing with stuff and she doesn't know how to deal with it. And that's okay. But I'm just saying, like, eventually, like, she gets to the point where she's ready to leave. And it just takes her so long. She doesn't make the decisions she should be making once she gets to the point where she's like over it. But anyways, so then after this potato, he is like he's so annoying. I even stopped wanting you for a year. This never happened. So he's obviously the biggest player in the whole world. He's just rat to the highest order rat. And he goes back to his mommy because he runs out of money. She's this big Hollywood gossipist, and so she stuffs Abra in like their guest house. She's basically like a prisoner. She goes to these fancy parties and they introduce her as their cousin, and so I guess that's an interesting thing. But again, I don't know what she's feeling during this whole time, so it's just like, okay, I guess we're doing this, but I don't know what she's feeling. I don't know what she's going through, so it's just a disconnect from the character. And I think that's one of the most annoying things in a book for me, and that's personally why I'm trying to write my book very intentionally with, shout out to my book that I'm writing. I'm trying to be intentional with the characterization of my main characters so that people feel connected and understand what's going on and why she's doing the things she's doing. So anyways, back to the story. Zoom forward a little bit. She meets this, like, he's kind of a agent. He's a big Hollywood agent. So he picks her. He's like, oh, you're beautiful. And then he gets her all makeup, all done, you know, hair, everything. He's like, you're going to be a model. You're going to be an actor. And so she's doing all this stuff. She doesn't really want to. They dye her red hair black. She's like, who is this girl? He changes her name to Lena Scott. She lives in his apartment. But he's like, I don't want sex. That's not what I want. That's not why you're here. I just want you to be. He's like old. He's pretty old and crusty. So she's doing all that. She's kind of tasting the fame a little bit. She's liking how all the guys are like falling for her. There's some steamy scenes with her photo shoots where she's just like becoming basically like a Marilyn Monroe, like an image that guys are just drooling over. And she likes it at first, and then she's getting bored. She's working too hard. He doesn't understand her. The agent says, hey, I fall in love with you. You're all I want, Lena Scott. And so she's like, the only time I really appreciated this character was when she was like, he doesn't love me. You love Lena Scott. You don't know Abra and whatever. But for some reason she stays with this guy. I guess she doesn't really have a choice. He's kind of giving her the fame, all the record deals. She still doesn't feel like she can go back to Haven. Doesn't feel like people would forgive her for everything she's done. And so it's interesting because the people back there are seeing her become a movie star. They barely recognize her at first, but they see her, and then so they continue to go back to those people, which is slightly annoying, but whatever. The Reverend is falling in love with Susan from the diner that I mentioned to keep in the back of your mind. I'm saying all this really fast because I want you to have the whole story, and it's a fat story. It's a fat story. And I'm literally going to lose my voice, but I'm doing it for you, so you don't have to read it, because I would not recommend reading it. That's the thing. I would not recommend reading this book. It's just so much with little satisfaction in the end. The big thing with this agent guy is he falls in love with her. Then she wants to have a baby. He doesn't, but she's like, yeah, we're gonna do it anyways. So she gets pregnant. He's like, nope, can't have that. So I won't even say it, but that happens. And so she loses the baby, and it's just like, again, severely traumatizing things. But I don't know how this character feels about it. So how am I supposed to relate to her? She feels like a numb poster board that, it's fine. It's fine. So then she takes money from him, writes him a note, says, I never loved you, I've been faking the whole time, leaves, runs away. She feels bad. I think. I don't know. There were some tears, I guess, but I don't know if she feels bad because I don't know anything about what she feels. Then she starts working at this diner in a small town. Somehow her brother, Josh, is there. He loves her. Forgot to say that. He's romantically in love with her. That's why I said, I mean, they're not really sister and brother. Obviously, they only worked together for like 2 years as sister and brother, but they grew up as friends. I just like to make it weirder than it is because it weirds me out a little bit. It is a little bit weird that, I don't know. It is something a little, it's like, it's not wrong, but it's also like, Okay, anyways. So he's been in love with her for forever, and so he sees her at the diner, and he tries to get her to come home. He's being all, like, caring and whatnot. She tells him everything she did. He forgives her. Then, fast forward a year, and they're married. They find out at the very end that Susan is the mom who dropped her off under a bridge, and then that's the end. Saying this all over again is really just confusing me, because I'm like, I read this, it feels like a fever dream. It felt like a fever dream when I was 14 as well, but it feels like even more of a fever dream because I now know what good writing is. And I know my girl Francine Rivers can write really well, like Redeeming Love, super good. But for some reason, this one just did not hit, and I don't know if it's just the weird stepbro romance or if it's the lack of characterization with Abra, the lack of motivation. We don't get to see inside her, and there's like, I guess with Redeeming Love, you don't really get their inner thoughts as much, but I think she just did a better job of like using dialogue to show like what the characters were thinking and feeling, and that's how we characterize them. But in this one, the dialogue is just wackadoo. I think Abra opens her mouth a handful of times. It's a lot of exposition, a lot of storytelling, and it's just not, it's not as good as it could have been. I mean, you can read it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a long journey for a very unsatisfying end. I don't know. I don't even know. I think I gave my reasons, but if you disagree with me, it's totally fine. I'm not gonna love every book. You're not gonna love every book. This is just my opinion. I still respect Miss Francine Rivers for everything she's written, but this one is probably at the lower end of quality and from what I expect from her. But yeah, that's that. Those were my unwarranted thoughts on this random book that you probably have never heard of, but I just kind of had to vent. Forget about it. And now I can move on. I don't have to think about that book anymore. Except in my nightmares. Anyways, thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next time because I'm committed to this channel now that I've got 21 subscribers. I'm basically famous.